We're on a road trip to go to southern Indiana. We're going down to see Larry Hopkins, expert luthier and mandolin maker. He makes violins and mandolins at Red Maple Violin Shop in southern Indiana. And when I was in New York, I worked for a band. It was either Old Crow Medicine Show or Yonder Mountain String Band or maybe Levon Helm. And one of the mandolin players found out I was from Indiana, and we were talking, and he said, the next time you get back home, make sure you look up Larry Hopkins, because he makes great mandolins. So now I'm writing this book about dead man's tuning, and I emailed Mr. Hopkins, and he graciously accepted to allow me to come and take some pictures of his mandolins. So we're making a little documentary of our trip today. It's a beautiful day. So far we've made it to Indianapolis, and now we're heading south to southern Indiana. So we're almost halfway there, and I'm really excited. So far traffic's been good, and we haven't had a big problem, and we're on our way. Here we are in southern Indiana. We're almost to Mr. Hopkins' house, and or to his shop, and we are getting really close, and I'm really excited about being able to show you some mandolins and see a real craftsman in action.
Always mark each instrument off with that plate each time, and that makes your instruments within reason fairly close.
Okay.
If it's off the same plate.
So that way you're
not. So we've got three different size, three different plates on the fiddles. One's a Guarneri Del Jesu, which is a small. It's
that would be like
full size.
For younger kids?
No, it's a full size, but it's just a smaller version. And then one that is phrased Guarneri Paganini.
Okay, I've heard of
it. Canon. It's actually got three names. Guarnerius is, I guess, copy or likeness of the Paganini canon. And then that instrument was taken and made into a bigger body to come up with the 5-string fiddle that I'm building.
Oh, okay.
I didn't come up with the pattern; somebody else came up with it. But it's a super working pattern.
Okay.
It's still a small body. It's not like a viola body.
Right.
It's a smaller body, but it's just big enough that it makes a really good performing 5-string.
What's the extra note that for the extra string?
The top string you add is C string.
Oh, okay.
Which in reality it's harmony.
Okay.
The guys that play harmony and stuff with the groups, they can go and make prettier harmony than you've ever been able to go on a fiddle.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Normally you'd have like session players and stuff, they carried a viola and a 4-string fiddle. to do session work with, to get that range.
This way they have one
You
instrument.
just got one instrument.
Now, does it take a lot of work to relearn to work with that extra string? Or?
It's a little different. It's a little different. For myself, I couldn't get used to it. Of course, I don't play much. So I built a 5-string, actually it was a 6-string mandolin.
Okay.
Put 2 strings on the bottom, and where you had your frets to where I could get that sound in my mind,
right.
You know, of what the 5th string actually sounded like.
I see.
Or the C string and the G string in combination for your drones.
Well, that's pretty cool.
But that you could get used to it fairly quick that way. But
so on a 6-string mandolin, could you play it in? I mean, I'm assuming you're playing also in alternate tunings, or are the main strings still in standard? And
everything's still standard.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's still standard. I just built it to get the relationship on those 2 strings.
Did you build that model to sell, or
no?
Oh, that's just one that you made.
It's hanging right now. The one on the right there is the 6-string mandolin.
Can I show it? Here.
How long have you been building instruments?
Well, you see it don't get played, and it's not got. Oh, this, yeah, that's right. I redone it. I did have 6 strings on it, and I went and redone it. This is.
Oh, I see.
You had to use.
It's an extra.
But that was the relationship that I was after was
That
on a
tone.
fiddle, because I play fiddle, and what that was going to sound like.
Boy, that is
This thing's out of
beautiful.
tune. This thing's out of tune. But we know what the D and the G sounds like.
Right.
Combination. So that's the main reason I built it, was just for that, and that it don't get played.
Can I borrow that and get a picture?
Well,
That's
on video.
still recording.
Not.
It's not?
That's why I'm using this.
Okay, well, I'll get the pictures afterwards.
But yeah.
So how long have you been making instruments?
Well, I really don't know. I guess it's been probably 16, 18 years ago. I wanted a mandolin to play on, and so I acquired a pattern off of a friend at that time, and made me a form. And you know, mandolin forms, they're on the outside.
Oh, I
Mandolin is built on the inside of its form.
Okay.
And the fiddle, they're on the inside.
Okay. It's opposite.
It's opposite, but so of course this style here is the old lower print. This was built on the old lower print. I don't use the lower print no more.
What do you use now?
Well, it's kind of the old lower print had a sag in one side on the base. On the base side, it sagged out.
Right.
And it was hard to get the F-holes
Oh, to properly align.
to get them right with the bridge. Your measurements was always off on the sides,
I
the
see.
margins from the holes out, and it wasn't symmetrical enough that it looked like one F-hole was always lower.
Yeah, I've seen those.
It just, you never could get it to work, look uniform. So about 2-3 years ago, I just measured across the widest point on it, and took me a circle maker, and I just made me a circle. So this is all uniform on my new mandolins, and of course put the scroll back on and the button and the spears. But yeah, this is not made to sell. I don't make these to sell because I just.
The ones that you make for sale are the traditional F-style
They're the traditional
Mandolins.
style mandolins.
If somebody wanted one, you could make another one again, though, or?
One like this?
Yeah.
Well, I expect I would if I wasn't really covered up with the
A lot of
other
other stuff.
instruments.
So how many instruments do you make a year, usually?
Well, it just runs, I don't really know. I think maybe I made, this past year, I think I made 12 mandolins. And I don't know how many fiddles. I don't have no idea, probably 15, maybe closer to 20 fiddles. In all, I think I'm working on fiddles. I'm working on like in the 80s, and mandolins. I built an F model, experimental model, this past winter, and if I numbered it, it would be number 75.
Wow. I wonder what year it would have been, the band that I met in New York. I wonder. And do you have like bands that contact you to make them, or do they just buy them out of the stores that you sell them?
I've never advertised my mandolins. I've never, up until the last 4 or 5 years ago, I went up at Nashville, Indiana, at the Weed Patch Music Center there, and she put my mandolins and 4-string and 5-string fiddles in there.
Okay.
And up until then, I've never had my instruments anywhere. They sold themselves, and
that was it.
somebody come in and buy one, and somebody'd see it, and they'd buy another one, and just... Yeah, until the economy slowed down, I never had an instrument to show.
Wow.
Other than what I had, I kept
That you
playing
kept for
myself.
yourself.
You know,
That's
it
pretty
was
good.
always all sold out.
What's the price range?
Oh yeah. So when you do sell them, what do they usually go for?
Well, I run them on the internet. I've got a website on the internet. At $2,000 a piece, whether it be mandolin, guitar, 5-string fiddle, or 4-string fiddle, whichever one of the two sizes, 2 plates.
Yeah, I've seen.
What's the name of the website?
Yeah, we can tell everybody your website too if you give us the.
Well, it's just redmapleshop.com.
Okay, redmapleshop.com, and you go check out the instruments there. That is so beautiful too. What kind of wood did you use on this?
It's just red maple. That's the reason why I use red maple in the shop name, because red maple is different than hard maple and soft maple. And it has its own sound. It's not near as hard maple to build out of. Okay. But it's plenty hard enough to resonate good.
Okay.
The best thing is it works a whole lot easier.
As in regular. I know maple is sugar maple is really hard to work. I've found that.
So this particular one here has a European red spruce top. And of course, I've built my own bridges for quite a while. I don't care about the let's say the modern functional.
Oh, the adjustable ones. Yeah. They break easy. I found. What I did, I have a friend. I gave her a mandolin, and when I had it, the bridge broke several times, and finally I glued it and got it all working again. But the problem that I had was to get it to where the action was right, you would have to adjust it up so high that it was putting so much pressure that little piece couldn't handle it. So instead I took some hedgewood, or I guess Osage orange, or we make hedge posts out of them, and it's really hard wood. It's really hard to work, but I thought if it's this hard to work, it'll withstand the pressure. So I carved a piece, made a bridge out of it, and then I routed out a groove in it, and then put brass and made a brass rod to where the strings rest on it. Really made a nice bright tone for the bridge there, and it's, you know, the hedgewood's never going to break, so it turned out pretty good that way. That's as far as I've gotten as far as making anything for them. One of these days, maybe I'll actually try to build one.
Well, I've experimented with brass, copper, aluminum, ceramics, different type of horn. Bone is by far the best to seat strings in.
Okay.
I've used some pearl. I guess pearl is supposedly, mother of pearl is supposedly, that's the very, very best.
Okay.
Supposedly. I don't like to work it.
Does it flake a lot, or?
It's got a dust on it. If you breathe it, you can die pretty quick.
Yeah, that's not
They
good.
work that. It's it's mainly worked underwater. If you've got the machines and stuff to do that with.
Now, are your inlay, is that pearl or is that abalone, or?
Well, on this particular one, it's abalone.
Okay.
The fret markers on it is abalone, but I use abalone and mother pearl, either one doesn't make no difference, and I use a lot of wood inlay.
Okay.
Too. Even on my new mandolins, I use some wood inlay.
I read on an interview, and I believe it was from some website at Bloomington, where they had interviewed you a while back, and you said that you like using different types of woods on your instruments to get different sounds. What all woods do you like to use, and are there any that you would like to use that you haven't tried yet?
Well, yeah, there's one wood that I'd like to try other than some of these exotic woods. You get into quite a bit of money buying in exotic woods. I guess that's all right. But pecan is a wood that I look at it as if it's got sound in it. It makes a noise whenever you're rubbing it. It's got sound in it.
Okay.
So it's going to make an instrument if you get it the right calibration.
Sure.
And pecan wood, I don't really know much about it other than that they use it in making turkey calls.
Oh, okay.
And if a little bitty box can make enough noise to for a turkey to hear a mile away, it has to have sound in it.
Yeah, right.
And that's the only wood that I've not used that I'm brought my attention to that I would. Well, there's a lot of woods that I've been using, the exotic woods on my bridges that I've found makes a big difference.
Oh, really?
But I had never thought about using them on building the bodies of an instrument. But there's a wood they call canary wood. It is super for bridges, for the bridge bases.
Where does it come from?
I have no idea. Woodcraft store is where I buy those small blocks to make bridges.
Okay.
And there's a yellow heart, a zebra. This is zebra in here on this particular bridge. Everybody thinks ebony is the only wood to use. You can go in a shop like that, and most usually it's in 2-inch square blocks, and they'll be 10, 11 inches long. You can hang them up and knock them with your fingers, and about everything will have more sound in it than ebony. Ebony, some of this ebony is dead.
That's what I thought, because like I play piano, it's my main instrument, and the keys, the old pianos, a lot of times, just tapping around or something, they don't have, they're dead. It's not, no resonance at all to it.
But this canary wood is really, I just bought one blank of it, but the next time I go, I'll buy more than what I bought this last time. But I bought several pieces of a variety, yellow heart, and so on and so forth. And Purple Heart's good. I just restored a Sigma, Martin Sigma guitar, and I built the bridge. It had to be an oversized because the bridge was on there crooked, and reset the neck and everything in it. And I had to build an oversized bridge for it, and I built it. Yeah, I built it out of Purple Heart.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty.
And I've had it played once, but the keys is bad, so I took it down to all the neck and get new keys for it. But it's really got good sound to it. But to go back to the woods, I built out of your maples, your shell maple, your extremely curly maple, plain maple. This is basically, in a lot of areas, would be called plain maple. Although it's got some curl in it, but it's not really fancy. I find the fancy wood, the best thing to do with the fancy wood is get you a piece of it and varnish it, drill a hole in it and hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
You look at it.
Yeah, right.
Because if it's not got sound in it,
What good is it?
it ain't no good for nothing.
Yeah.
So, but the maples, walnuts, I've used poplar, not on the back, the box part of it, the back of the ridge, but sassafras.
Oh, really?
I've got a mandolin that I made with the sassafras top and an oak ribs and back.
Really neat.
And it's a really good playing instrument.
I'll bet.
It's got a lot of power. So, you know,
Cherry? That's what I was just getting ready to ask
I
you.
like to work.
Oh,
This is one of the cherry guitars. I built 3 cherry guitars.
Wow, that's
out of
beautiful.
curly cherry. Mahoganies. Crotch. This is the old mahogany. Crotch and straight grain. Cherry, walnut, ash. I just finished a crotch ash mandolin, and I had a piece of chestnut.
Oh, wow.
And I put it on the top, and I finished it on a Thursday, and it sold on Sunday.
Wow.
It's the best, by far the best mandolin I've ever made.
That was, and do you find that some of the different woods have brighter characteristics and some are darker? Like I noticed, like I have a Fender electric guitar and I have a Gibson, and they both have a different sound. I know some of that has to do with the electronics, but it seems like the lighter wood is a lot brighter sounding than the heavier one. Do you find that too with acoustic instruments?
Well, there's a lot goes into the sound of an instrument. The wood has a lot, probably the most to do with it, yeah.
Okay.
The walnuts and the cherries, whether it's crotch or straight grain, they tend, what I found, they tend to make them more mellow.
Okay.
Got that shrill ring off the top of the notes.
Right.
If you put it across the mic, you want to use earplugs, you know.
That's what my problem is with a lot of the Chinese mandolins that are coming in. They're a little too shrill when you mic them up.
Yeah, they're
They're cheap.
they're built to sell, and
Yeah.
what can you say? You know, they're in it. Of course, I have to sell my instruments. Of course, I try to make a living from it. You know, have to make. So it's not that I'm not in it for the money. I've got to sell my instruments, but at the same time, if I sell you an instrument, it's got to play,
Right.
and it's got to satisfy you, and that's my main goal is is to build an instrument that people can play and enjoy.
Yeah.
Can you let him try one?
Pardon?
Could he try your instrument
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Can I go grab my tuner though, real quick? I've got a tuner in my bag of car. Or maybe.
I've got two.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I don't play the standard tuning usually.
Oh,
I don't know how long this will go for.
It'll go for a long time.
well,
Unless the battery runs out.
this is just man, so we'll just.
Well, that's a pretty one.
This is the sassafras and oak.
That is gorgeous.
I don't know how you want it to, but here's.
I tune Dead Man's tuning usually. I should tune up. We can go sit back down. This is so beautiful. I love the dark around the blonde. Most guys play with a flat pick, and I use finger picks when I play. Sometimes I just use I don't use picks at all a lot of times, but really?
What is that, a certain style?
I play a lot of guitar, and so I started out picking with the guitar, and then when I switched over to mandolin, I got gout real bad, and so when I play with a pick, my hand cramps. And so I can play a little bit, but if I go do a show, then my hand cramps up, so I started playing with thumb picks, so that way I can not get the cramps that bad when I play. And I don't know if anybody else plays like that or not, but I do know that some of the blues guys play like that, but I don't know. And I don't normally play in standard tuning anymore, so I kind of got the practice of playing like that. And that's what my book is about, this particular tuning. And this is called Dead Man's tuning, or D-Dad, I guess, D. Well, I actually tune this to A-Dad, A-D-A-D. And sometimes I'll tune this top string or bottom string down to a D, an octave lower. And that gives me kind of a drone down here. And then I can play my melody on the top two strings that way.
Now, in the old fiddle books, they just call it D tuning or A tuning.
Yeah, and so that's kind of, so what I found was there doesn't seem to be a lot of people that play in it only for a couple songs, and what I found was I could take a lot of songs that people play in standard and I could rewrite them and not even have to change that much and put them into the D tuning. And then the other part of it is that there are a lot of chords that are easier for me to play in this tuning than it was. I know a mandolin a lot of times has the two finger chords, but I found that I could play in E flat and I could play in F sharp and some other weird keys that my dad plays piano, but he always plays in E flat or F sharp or A flat, which most mandolin players are like, are you nuts playing in those keys? But it's a little bit easier for me to actually play in those keys in this tuning.
Yeah.
So like, there's my C chord and G and A, or that's an A, and then, you can just straight bar across to get a lot of stuff, and then move the different forms up, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed learning how to play in this kind of tuning. This is and if you see my videos, this is the kind of the theme song that I use for them. Duet between two mandolins, so one plays the top and one will play the bottom, and it'll sound like this. So that's kind of this little tune that I came up with for my
It sure is different. I've never heard nobody play the mandolin, or as far as that goes, any instrument. In the cross tuning, other than, like you say, about 3 songs.
Yeah, it seems like Bonaparte's Retreat, Shaving a Dead Man, and the other one was Midnight on the Water. Those are the only tunes that I've ever seen in that tuning. Now you put an extra sound hole down here. Is that for sound, or is that so you could put electronics in at some point, or?
Well, that started on the guitar back a few years. Of course, that's explained on my website.
Okay.
The reason for them holes. Guitars, you mentioned European instruments sounding shrill and stuff like that. People don't really realize they get a guitar and they don't like the sound of it, and if it don't change in a short time, well, they trade it off and try to find something. You've got 2 bars in the back of the guitar. Is your power bar and your tone bar.
Right.
And you can go in there and work on them bars and change the instrument. They keep an instrument from playing, or they make it play.
Okay.
And I sounded not a truckload, but I sounded enough guitars going in there, and it was really hard because my arm is too long to go in and be able to do anything. You couldn't reach them if you didn't get your elbow, and I've had my arm down in them before and think I wasn't going to get my arm. So I told myself if I ever built a guitar of my own, that I would put an excess hole in the guitar and leave it in there. I really didn't see anything that it would bother the instrument from playing or anything. So I started putting the D hole in the guitars, and you just, of course, the D hole fits the profile of your hand sliding in. Right. And right in here in the guitar, I just put so then your tone bars run this way in your guitar. So if I needed to, I could go in there and sound my instruments down the road if it didn't play in like somebody wanted it to. So it carried over. Mandolin is the worst instrument to build as far as consistency. I've heard some of the larger guitar makers' comments that, you know, they built 10 or so mandolins. If they had one or possibly two that was really decent, they felt like they really were happy, was doing pretty good. So I thought, and I've changed my lineal tone bars. I have built an X brace and lineal tone bars both. I quit the X brace because you had so much more of an area that you could experiment on the lineal tone bars and be able to move them and get more of a feel of what it really took to make a mandolin play. I see. Or let one play. So in addition with position, I put them in there. If you turn the mandolin upside down and look through that hole, you're looking right in on this tone bar. I see. Yep. So what it is, actually, it's an excess hole where I can go in there and sand on the tone bar if I need to make it sound better. To make it come in and play in. Do you ever electrify any of the mandolins that you make? I've never electrified any of them. No, I've never electrified any of them. Of course, there's been quite a change in my shop in the last year and a half. I just sick and tired of what we had available to us, and I don't understand the major players in this, building stuff that's not fit to use. Components. Right. Especially in the violin. And it carries over into the mandolin also, is anytime you take a material and cast it, you kill all the sound properties that material piece of material would have had normally. Right. Of course, you have, the way they were using it, like in your die-cast tailpieces with the built-in tuners for your fiddles and stuff, they're dead. Yeah. They have no sound in them. There's no resonance. Why would you expect an instrument to play really nice if it's got a big dead spot in it? Right. Makes sense. So I got to experimenting with aluminum, and this is my standard aluminum tailpiece for a mandolin now, and has been. I've got it documented on my website when I started making them, and I don't know whether the cost involved in getting something patented is worth it. It's terrible, and there's not much now. I mean, I experimented with this, different lengths, different widths, different thicknesses, different hardnesses of the aluminum,
I see.
and it's all tedious. It's all, you got to do it on the very same instrument, same sets of strings,
Keep trying
same everything. Just, you know, and I've come up with that length, and no more milling on it than what you see there, the double E milled in for the strings to hook on. It's easy access on that.
Well, I tell you what, this has such a resonance.
It's the violin, the fiddle tail pieces that I've built, coming up with building. They are super. I mean, it turns them loose. It turns them instruments loose. I don't know where I should be talking about it, you know, to the public, because public is dumb to the fact that tradition is great. But why not do something? Why hasn't these major players, the major manufacturer of instruments, that makes an instrument? And these adjustable bridges, that's just a fantasy to think that you can have something on an instrument that would sound good just because you can raise it up.
It's horrible. My Gibson has, somebody before I bought it put one of those, it wasn't a Floyd Rose, but it was kind of like a Floyd Rose with all the different adjusters. It just makes it hard to keep in tune.
Well, it just kills an instrument
to
start off with.
I agree with you.
And if I had some way, these keys, they're killing an instrument too, but they ain't really nothing that a fella can do about it.
What you can do about that?
Because as much pressure as there is on a mandolin head key, you certainly can't have like a solid piece of wood like a fiddle. But
did you ever think about, like, the old lutes had pegs, like have you ever experimented with anything like that? Or?
I restored a couple of lutes that was all ivory and inlaid all over, and they had ivory keys and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, but to get in that kind of material and to get into making that much stuff, let's say, stuff, you wouldn't be able to build very many mandolins in a year.
Yeah.
So I've compromised myself. That's the best that I can possibly do.
So what brand tuners are these?
I'm using the Grovers.
I like Grovers.
I'm using the Grovers. The only reason I changed from what I used to, I had some that was set and you'd have one hard key out of the side and they wouldn't do nothing about it.
Oh, really?
The manufacturer wouldn't replace them, or the place that was selling them wouldn't, so I just changed brands. Of course, it probably didn't do nothing to the market. They didn't know I changed. But anyway, you do what you can do yourself, and this aluminum tailpiece deal, it would really change tradition. I mean, there'd be some people who'd fight it and swear it don't work, but I guarantee you, I've had people I had one guy brought an early Japanese-made Kentucky mandolin.
Before they switched over to Japan, or after, I guess.
This is the first ones. The old man Sumi.
Okay.
Mr. Sumi. He's the one that actually built the first Kentucky mandolin.
Oh,
1500s.
Really? Okay.
Now they're building the Sumi mandolin.
Okay.
But he's the one the way I understood it, built the first Kentucky 1500 mandolin. They're pretty good mandolins.
Yeah, I played them. They're not bad. I was surprised. I thought that they were actually made in Kentucky when I first heard about them, and then I found out they were Japanese, and I was like, well, were they ever made? Somebody told me they started out in Oregon, but I don't know.
I don't know about that either, but he brought one of them in here, and I mean it was just ragged out. The mandolin has been played and played and played and played, and he said, why don't you put one of them tail pieces on there and put me a solid bridge on it like you're building, and put bone up here and give it a chance. See what, when that mandolin went out of here, you wouldn't believe what that mandolin sounded like.
Have you thought about just building a bunch of bridges and selling them separate, or?
Well, the way I look at that, I know what it'll do.
Mm-hmm.
I've experimented and experimented. I know what it'll do. I really don't care if anybody else building instruments has got that or not, because that puts my instrument, if you lay apple to apple, I guarantee
You're up ahead of them.
I guarantee you it puts my instruments ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you what, that was what was interesting. When I was in New York, I only played a little bit of mandolin, but it was neat to be able to see a lot of the different bands that would come through and the different types of instruments they had, and yours really stood out. I don't know where the guy picked it up from, but
I wouldn't have no idea which mandolin it would have been.
I wish I'd taken a picture of it or something, but I didn't think I was moving back to Indiana at the time either. And but when I got back here, I started teaching a lot more mandolin. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll write a book about this style that I've been playing. And when I went online, I thought, well, I wonder if there are any, instrument makers nearby, because I'd rather have somebody local and take pictures of their stuff to put in my book rather than, get stuff from China. Why give them a upper hand? And then I found your website, and I was like, oh, that's the guy that they were telling me about. So it was kind of exciting for me to go from, the music hall in New York, and then to come, be able to come back here and see where you make them. But
one more question. Does he need an apprentice? Well, who does he have that works with him? Do you have other people in the shop that...
by yourself, or?
Basically, I do everything myself, with the exception of, I've had a guy to come in occasionally, and that story has to go back to the Honduran crotch mahogany that I've got, that I use. So you can't get that wood no more.
Oh, I see.
And there was a guy come in here, and he ended up being a friend out of the situation. Wanted me to build a mandolin and a fiddle for him with this wood. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, yeah, I'll build you. I said, I'd like to know what that wood sounds like. Can't get it.
Right.
And so before we started on the instruments, he had, they call them trees. They'd just be a big wedge piece of this crotch out of this gigantic mahogany tree. Some of them was 3.5 foot, some of them was 4 foot, one of them was like 64 inches tall.
Wow.
And so we made the deal, and actually his 2 instruments was there.
Oh, okay.
This is his mandolin.
Oh, cool.
Crotch mahogany mandolin. This is his, and I made 2 of each. I kept this, of course I sold mine. This was his mandolin here, and this was his fiddle. And that wood, it's something else. I've got another. This is the very last one that I finished in the mandolin, and this is another piece of that crotch mahogany.
That's beautiful.
Crotch mahogany, but this wood here is different. This is some reclaimed old pine wood.
Okay.
But to get back to why the mahogany was here and everything, stuff comes to you sometimes in an unusual way,
Right.
when you acquire this wood that you can't really
Pass it up.
You can't really get nowhere else, and I've lost one of my picks. But somebody says tradition is better than changing a little something to get a sound like that, this is a brand new mandolin. This ain't been played. This is not played in.
It's got a great tone to it. That's nice.
So I more or less use this stuff because I know it works.
Yep.
And I'd change some more of it if I could, but I can't.
If you could change something, what would you want to, aside from the tuners, is there anything else that you would want different?
I'd love to make a mandolin with the canary wood on the fingerboard.
Oh, that'd be nice.
You don't, people sometimes, you know, you don't realize how much, just that little thin piece of mahogany, I wouldn't build another, in fact, I'll show you how much I dislike maple in necks. I'll show you at the bit. But I stopped using maple on necks a long time ago. I had to use it on fiddle because that's the only thing you could get.
Oh, I see.
Outside of carving the necks yourself. Well, I didn't go to school to do this, so I didn't really know how to carve a headstock. But since in this last year, I've got that took care of.
Okay.
But
so now you can make your headstock out of whatever you wanted to then.
yes, and I made them out of mahogany.
Yeah, that's nice.
I have to do some extra work to use mahogany because mahogany's not stiff enough on your peg.
Oh, I see.
You got to boost it out.
Boost it up.
Boost the holes out where your keys are going to be, and glue in walnut or some type of hard wood, and then drill your holes through there for your keys to fit inside that.
That makes sense.
Since then, I've been thinking a little bit about maybe about going to walnut necks on my fiddles, but when you go to talk about no more mahogany than there is, and the difference in mahogany neck is compared to maple neck, this fingerboard would have to make another significant difference.
Right. Well, are these ebony? Is that what?
They're supposed to be the best ebony that we can get that's on the market.
But you have I guess a musical sounding wood like canary wood, and then that would make a change.
I have to believe that it would enhance the sound.
Now, do you think that if you played it a while though, that it would dig out, or would it be hard enough to where your fingers wouldn't dig out the?
Well,
because I know the old maple fenders sometimes it seems like after people play them for years they start to dig out a little bit.
Rosewood is bad about that. I rebuild a lot of instruments, and you have in your dominant playing area up through the say 6th or 7th fret, like on a guitar, it's going to get wore. And the main reason, as far as I'm concerned, the main reason is fingernails and small fret wire. This is the jumbo fret wire.
Yeah, I
You
noticed.
can play this instrument and never touch the fingerboard.
It's different. I mean, it's because for my guitars, the fret wire is, like you said, a lot smaller, and even on my mandolin. But what I like about this is you don't even have to push it that much to get it to sound. I mean, it just.
I've had some of my old instruments come in, and the frets would be wore to where a string is buried in it, and there would still be no wear on the fretboard.
Wow.
So, using a softer wearing wood, supposedly canary wood you'd think would be soft, it's really not soft. Now this, here again, this is a piece of zebra wood, and this is the very last one that I used. I don't remember exactly. This is a piece of purple heart.
Okay.
I didn't have very much of that canary wood. I just bought one block of it when I was down there, but it's hard. It's hard enough that I wouldn't have a thought against using it on
perfect then. That'd be neat.
But it's not, when you're building instruments, it's not, I'm going to do this and this is going to do it all. You ain't going to have one thing that's going to make the big difference. You've got to do everything that you can do, and at the best, the consistency, especially on the mandolin, is out the window.
Right.
It's be kind of different, and I can't really prove it because I don't have all the mandolins here. But the last 12 mandolins that I built, including that nerve was one of the 12, all of them was just about like that mandolin.
Okay.
And they was out of crotch walnut, they was out of maple, they was out of ash, and they was out of this oak.
What?
This is oak. Who's crazy enough to use oak
Oak's awesome.
on
Beautiful.
the back and the rib? Of course, this is what the phrase is, the burr oak.
Mm-hmm.
But that wood had sound in it.
Mm.
I believe what you're talking about. I mean, I really think that, well, I mean, that's my opinion, but I think God made the trees and made all that stuff so that we can make things like this, and He knows what, you know, quality should be in the instruments and in the different trees. And it's like the same way with drums. I watched a show one time about these guys in Africa making djembes, and they go around on logs and they knock, and when they find a log that sounds good, then they take that, cut it down, and carve it out, and then it makes a great drum.
See, they got enough sense. They got enough sense to know that you just can't cut a forest down.
Yeah.
And every stick of it.
Well, that's it. It's got to be the right tree.
They've cut the ebony down. The old ebony. There's no such thing as old ebony anymore. They're down into the smaller trees. I was working with a piece. I was getting out another fingerboard this morning for this next mandolin, and it's got great big gray streaks running up and down it. And you can actually go to a supplier and say, I want some of that real streaked wood.
Right.
And they'll think it's something different.
Okay.
All it is junk ebony.
Yeah.
It's the low.
Yeah, the low grade
quality that you can buy. Yeah. If you want a black fingerboard, you dye it when you get it.
I see.
Picked.
But you might want the characteristic of the.
I got another question.
You got another question?
Yeah. What's the one tool that you can't live without as far as making mandolins? Not that you have a lot of tools.
You probably couldn't live without a lot of them, maybe.
Well, I think to build instruments and to truly do the best that anybody could do, I think you wouldn't be able to build instruments without the thought that I can make this wood play if I can just figure out. It's the initiative to go on and make that wood play. I have people, every once in a while you get in a conversation, well, whatever made you start using walnut? It's pretty, but why walnut? Why not walnut?
You're right, yeah. If it's got the sound in it.
Walnut's a furniture material, cabinet material.
Well, so is mahogany.
See, you have the mindset of an artist. You're willing to experiment on things, and that's what an artist does, right?
Well, I guarantee you, you have to experiment to go from where I started to this mandolin here, and this is not the best mandolin in my book that I have built. But what I'm saying is, this set of 10 here, this is the second one out of a set of 10 that I've got coming. This is the second that's been like this.
Yeah.
The first one was just a little bit deeper in tone.
Okay.
It just had more. It just had a little more tone to it. It was. And there's a boy that helped me, and he helped me, a friend helped me when I was working with aluminum.
Okay.
On thoughts and this type of stuff. See, it really helps you sometimes. You sit around and you think of something and, no, that ain't good. Well, if you voiced it, he might have thought it was a pretty good idea. And that's actually how the aluminum tailpiece was first used on a mandolin. That's how it come about. Because we was sitting there one evening and we was building stuff, and I had a mandolin about ready to set up, and for some reason or other I said, I'm going to go back there and get a strip of aluminum and put on that mandolin and see what kind of tailpiece I could make for that. And we was sitting right here. He said, why? I said, well, why not?
Yeah.
Let's just see what it sounds like. And that was about 4 o'clock. And we were still sitting here quite a bit after I'd done that, just trying to figure out what I'd done. Because like he said, something happened there that if everybody heard that, understood what went on, they'd throw every mandolin tailpiece that was ever casted as far as I could see them.
Well, the one thing too, on a lot of the mandolins that I've seen, they look like they're just stamped out of cheap, really, thin metal. They don't seem to hold up real well, and they're always breaking. And I mean, it's something like this, that's going to last as long as the instrument lasts. They're longer.
Another question.
You got another? She's the interviewer.
So you said you had a instrument that you felt like you've made better instruments. What was like your favorite instrument, and do you still have it, or what do or the best quality one?
As far as mandolins, I've never really kept a mandolin to play. That mandolin there, my buddy that's spent some time here in the shop with me, when I decided I was going to use some of that oak, he was joking about what kind of top to put on it. And I said, well, he said, that look really different if you had a piece of sassafras. He didn't know I had sassafras.
Oh, okay.
So I went out there and got the ladder out, got up in the front up in there and pulled that board out. And I said, what do you think about that? He said, man, that'd be pretty. He said, what is that? I said, that's sassafras. No. Well, I've kept that on account of the way it sounds and as good as it sounds, but like I say, it come out of that set that there wasn't no dogs in the bunch.
Everyone was good,
as good as that. It didn't matter what kind of wood it was or anything. So that's the first mandolin, and that's not but maybe a year and a half old.
Really?
That's the only mandolin that I've kind of kept back and played. Even when I wanted a mandolin, when I started building, I built 5, and I ended up selling all of them because they was pretty good. And
it's neat because I have high blood pressure and I take sassafras tea. As I got off the medicine, I started drinking the tea, and it keeps my blood pressure down and everything. It's just funny to see, a mandolin made out of. It's amazing what different woods do.
Oh yeah. But and as guitars, I just made 12 guitars, and I don't have I have a favorite wood, and that's walnut in the guitars. Fiddles, I played number 3. I made 4. I kept number 3 back and played it because I played fiddle. And I kept it until I made number 22. And I sell a lot of student sell a lot of fiddles to students. We got several good teachers around this area, and they want good instruments. And they recognize my instruments. And this young girl come in with her mother, and I just had one fiddle, and she didn't like it. And I said, well, I understand that you don't realize how much that instrument's going to change in a real short time.
Right.
But I said, and I got the number 22 out and handed it to her. I said, this is very similar to what that instrument will sound like down the road, just a short time, maybe sometimes they play in a month, sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes longer. And I've had them to play in when I was setting them up. You can hear them change.
They just
hear them change. Well, the little girl, she played on that fiddle, and you can tell. She said, Mommy, I want this one. This is the one that I want. I'll let her have it. And I played around on them, and then finally, the one I've kept the longest is number 56, and it's a mahogany fiddle.
Wow.
Here again, it's right up there. Out of the scrap off the sides of the crotch.
Really?
Book matched, just them pieces was like 2.5 inches thick.
Wow. So,
you got each cut, you've got several instruments. I've got quite a bit of that, and I treasure too. So number 56, when I made it, I've played it ever since.
Cool. And
like I say, I'm up in the 80s now, but...
Do you have a violin out here you can play for us?
Well, let me ask one more thing. So what about, you said you're getting up into your, as far as how many instruments you've made, right? Are you training your grandkids to learn how to make instruments?
Nobody has any interest.
It's such a shame.
I've got one grandson that he can pick up mandolin and still yet today he just messed with it. But he can pick it up and play Row, Row, Row Your Boat, and Mary Had a Little Lamb, and a couple, 3 songs like that. He's young. He started messing with it when he was about 12, and he's 14 now. But he can pick up mandolin and play it and just lay it down and turn it on and walk off, just like, I don't really care about it. And that's the way I was 39 years old before I had an uncle come down from up north, up Lafayette, Monticello, Pike County, and give me an old fiddle. And that's when I started playing. All I ever played was radio.
Oh wow!
Never had an instrument to play. So that's when I started, and it took me forever to get a little bit of a toehold on the fiddle and give it up. And that's when I won the mandolin. And I found real quick on the mandolin, I found what little I found on the fiddle in just a matter of minutes.
Right.
Because it's easy.
That's how I bought my daughter a fiddle, and it's like, I thought, well, I play mandolin, I can just teach her. It is a totally different, even though the tuning's the same, it's a different beast.
They're a little bit different. And then I went back to fiddle, and for some reason or other, I went on from there, and I really enjoyed playing the old-time fiddle, and I enjoy playing the mandolin, but I'm just not proficient at it.
So maybe he can play something.
Yeah, I'd like to hear you play. What are some of your favorite songs that you like to play?
Well, I'm going to have to
This has such a beautiful tone. painting, so I've got black paint on my hand.
Get a picture. No, wait, doing it wrong. I'm not used to this thing. Keep moving it, and it gets. I can't.
You keep putting your finger on your lens too. Your lens is right down here by your finger.
Trying to do this the right way.
Of course, I like waltzes.
Okay.
Waltzes is probably my favorite to play on any instrument, especially the fiddle. But just an old fiddle tune. Of course, you're probably familiar with, there's an old tune called Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Cool. I don't really care for fast tunes. That's about as fast as I want to get. But there is a lot of old fiddle tunes that really sounds good on the mandolin.
I want to learn some more of the fiddle tunes. Like my main instrument, I started off playing piano, and then I went to guitar. And on the piano, I play a lot of like Jerry Lee Lewis and you know boogie woogie stuff. And then when I went to the guitar, I liked blues, so I played a lot of blues. And then when I first started with the mandolin, I worked in a pawn shop in Texas, and we had a mandolin, but it was out of tune. I didn't know what they were tuned to, so I just tuned it, you know, to open E tuning, and started doing stuff. And one of the guys came in, and he's like, "That's not how you tune a mandolin." I was like, "I don't know, I'm just playing with it." And that's kind of how I got started. But then when I started learning standard tuning, my hand just didn't want to play some of the stuff, so that's why I switched over to Open D. I really want to learn more of the standard tuning one of these days, but I figure I'm still kind of exploring what I can do with the other one. But
Yeah.
Can I ask one more? Can I ask a question? If you don't mind my asking, I noticed that you're missing a finger. Did that happen from working on instruments or anything like that? Or?
Well, it happened due to having the machinery.
Yeah.
But actually, I was doing something for a neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, free gratis. And
Does it affect your playing at all, or no?
I had been working on the banjo, and whenever that happened, that pretty well took care of the banjo, messing with the banjo. But I had some banjos, and I've actually got if you're familiar with the Foxfire books.
yeah.
Well, when you get back there to the Roberts family in the banjo building, the Roberts family built banjos for players out in the field in the Civil War.
Right, and they're very valuable, those banjos now.
I've got one of those.
Oh, wow.
It's got a walnut neck and a white hickory ring, and it's got the brass eagles with I don't understand this. It's got the Washington Monument stamped in the
that's interesting.
chest of the eagle figure, but yet North Carolina made.
Which that was
I didn't
Southern.
quite understand that, but anyway, it had wood keys in it, and it's 5-string, fretless, naturally.
Wow.
And so I've done some work on it and fixed it up, and I've been working with it a little bit, mainly a regular fretted banjo.
Okay.
And when I actually pulled that finger off, pulled that joint to it, and pulled that joint to it, and I told him I didn't want it. I didn't want that joint left out there. I wanted to cut back further than that, because I'd have a lot of friends in woodworking, and if you've got a limb the nerves has been cut where you don't feel it,
right,
it's going to cause you problems.
That's my dad cut off the tips of his fingers, and he mentioned that a little bit too for the first few years until it finally the nerves.
The friends that I've had that's had fingers that you use a lot, maybe half cut off, and they keep them, and they'd be dead on one side or something, and they end up getting something else cut.
Yeah, and they don't
or
feel
cut
it.
them back off again.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, I was doing some free gratis work on a Sunday for a friend. And
So do you work on banjos? Do you still work on banjos or make banjos?
I built some banjo necks for the old. The ones that I'd done was the old tenor banjos, like the riverboat banjos, the big resonators on them, and take a 4-string neck out and put a 5-string neck in. They make really good banjos. I've got a Bacon 4-string tenor on the big body that I had intentions of doing that, but don't have no intention of doing it anymore.
Well, you could still play clawhammer style, though, couldn't you? Because that's just thumb and strumming.
Yeah, probably could, but after I'd done that,
kind of lost the page.
I thought, well, no more talented than I am. I'm very lucky to be able to play what little I can play, so I ought to be satisfied with that. So I just
stuck with
let it go. But I do have one of those Franklin, Roberts.
Oh, okay.
Roberts was their names. The Roberts family is the one that made them banjos.
That's pretty cool.
One of them.
Are there a lot of places around this part where there are a lot of musicians down here that play, from what I've heard. We're up in Wayne County, and I do run into some people that play guitar, but I don't run into too many people that play like mandolin and fiddle and stuff like that up in that area.
Well, we're fairly, I guess, and really that don't come from down there. The players, some of the people out of Louisville and surrounding suburbs, this player comes up and plays with us, but there's just about every night of the week, someplace around here, you could go to a jam.
Oh, cool.
Some of them you have to have a group.
Okay.
Because it's a stage show.
Okay.
It's free gratis, but still yet you have
to
have a group.
Okay.
Whether it's 2, 3, or 6. But as far as just an open jam session, where you carry any kind of instrument in and you don't have to play it lead, you can pass when it comes to you, or whatever you want to do. That's the kind of place that we had a place like that down here. We played 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and it got down to, it was just 2 of us, me and my buddy, was the only ones that would take any interest on supplying the money and time to keep it going, and supply the money. I mean, we sold made and sold whole sausage in the winter to support the organization. And the last year we made it, we had to hire help to bag it. So,
so that kind of defeats the purpose.
yeah. Cause you go down there, kill maybe 8 sows in the winter time overall, and sell the sausage, and everybody was used to that because the Coonhound Association that was there before we assumed the responsibility, they had done that, and I was part of that. It was a godsend. I mean, all you had to do is grind a little sausage in the wintertime, for free the whole year.
Yeah, right.
Bought the refreshments, and everything, and the insurance. But anyway, yeah, I have a jam here on Thursday nights, just for a real short crowd, just real short, just pleasure. And buddy.
So I'm back in my house, and that was such an awesome trip. It was so great to be able to go to Peking, Indiana, to visit Larry Hopkins and see his great instruments that he makes. I mean, I got to see a Martin that he was restoring. I got to see pictures of guitars that he had built. I got to see some violins that he built. And then for me, what was really cool was getting to see his mandolins and learning a lot about how he makes them and why he chooses certain materials and why he does things in certain ways, why he designed his own tailpiece and the way he makes his bridges and stuff. And it was such a treat for me to be able to be part of that whole thing, and hopefully one day I'll get one of his mandolins, because that would be really cool. And so we'll see, and I hope that this has been informative to you and entertaining and interesting, and I hope that if you would like to see more videos like this, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do about going on more trips, because that was a lot of fun. So God bless, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.